Welcome to CreepyCast, true horror stories with rain to keep you up at night. Like the video, subscribe, and let's get into it. Story 1. The old iron key felt heavier than it should, a relic from a time before swipe cards and digital codes. I'd rejoined Henderson's gym after nearly 20 years, drawn back by a doctor's stern advice and a whisper of nostalgia for a place that once felt like a second home. It hadn't changed much. The same scent of sweat, old leather, and faintly metallic air clung to everything. They'd even assigned me a locker in the old wing, number 142, its pale blue paint chipped at the corners. It started subtly, a faint, almost imperceptible scent of lavender just for a moment when I'd opened the locker. I dismissed it as lingering cleaning fluid, though Henderson's usually reeked of industrial bleach. Then small things would be out of place. My towel, neatly folded, would be slightly askew. My water bottle, always placed on the left, would be on the right. I chided myself for forgetfulness, the fog of middle age. But the feeling grew, a quiet sadness that seemed to emanate from the cold metal of 142. Sometimes, when the locker room was empty, the silence humming with the distant clang of weights, I'd hear a sigh, soft as a breath on a winter window. I started lingering, a strange compulsion to understand this presence. The gym, once a place of youthful vigor, now felt layered with a quiet sorrow I couldn't place. I missed the simplicity of my earlier workouts, the uncomplicated burn of exertion. Now there was this. One evening, struggling with the stiff lock, I felt something catch. Wedged deep in the hinge mechanism, almost invisible, was a small, tarnished silver locket shaped like a heart. It was clasped shut. My fingers fumbled with it, a strange sense of trespass warring with an urgent need to know. It finally sprang open. Inside, no picture, just a tiny, pressed forget-me-not, its blue faded but unmistakable, and the faintest trace of that same lavender scent. The next day, I asked old Mr. Henderson, who still occasionally manned the front desk, about locker 142, about any long-term members who might have used it. He looked pensive. "Ah, 142, he said, his voice softer than usual. "That was Alina's locker, sweet girl. Used it for years. Always smelled faintly of lavender, her soap, I think." He paused, his gaze distant. "We lost her, must be 15 years ago now. Car accident on her way home from her evening workout. She always kept a little pressed flower in a locket, a good luck charm." He looked at me then, a flicker of something unreadable in his old eyes. "Funny you should ask about that specific locker." I never told him what I found, but I carry the weight of that tarnished locket and the scent of lavender like a shared, unspoken grief. Story 2. The late-night sessions at 24/7 Fitness were my sanctuary, or they used to be. The hum of the industrial fans, the rhythmic clank of weights, the vast emptiness. It was a balm to a mind often too crowded. I'd lost that feeling of anonymous peace weeks ago, replaced by a prickling unease that centered on the far corner of the free weight area. It wasn't the security camera, though its little red light was a constant, indifferent eye. It was him. He was always there, no matter how late I arrived or how early I thought I might be. Medium build, nondescript workout clothes, always with a hood pulled low, even indoors. He never made eye contact, never spoke, just worked out with a silent, methodical intensity, always seeming to choose machines or weights that kept me in his peripheral vision. I told myself it was paranoia, the product of stress and too little sleep. My old confidence, the reason I started coming to the gym to feel strong and capable, was eroding into a thin, brittle shell. I started varying my routine, my arrival times, anything to break the pattern, to prove to myself it was coincidence. But he'd be there, perhaps on the leg press when I chose the squat rack, or doing shoulder flies near the dumbbell stand I favored. The gym, once my escape, felt like a slowly closing trap. The expansive mirrors, meant for checking form, now felt like 1,000 eyes reflecting his silent, persistent presence. One night I deliberately faced away from him, towards a large, slightly grimy mirror that reflected the entire section. I focused on my set, the familiar strain a fleeting distraction. As I racked the weights, my gaze flickered to his reflection. He wasn't looking at his own form or at the machine he was using. His head was angled slightly, his shadowed face in the mirror directed squarely at my back. And in the dim reflection of his hand, I saw it not a phone, but a small, worn, leather-bound notebook and a pencil moving quickly. The next day, I found a folded piece of paper tucked into my gym bag's side pocket. My blood ran cold. It was a meticulously drawn sketch, not of me working out, but of me asleep in my own bed, the specific pattern of my old quilt unmistakable, the title of the book on my nightstand clearly legible. The drawing was dated from 2 nights prior. I haven't been back to the gym or slept soundly since. Story 3. Routine is my bedrock. At the gym, it was gospel. 3 sets of 12 lat pull-downs, 70 kilos, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for years. The predictability was a comfort, a small island of order in a chaotic world. I remembered when I first started, fumbling and weak, the satisfaction of each small increase in weight, a tangible measure of progress. That feeling of steady, reliable achievement was now fracturing. Began with a flicker of doubt. Had I done 10 reps or 11, I'd lose count, something I never did. I started making meticulous ticks on a small notepad after each rep. Then one Wednesday, I completed my second set, made my 12 ticks, felt the familiar burn. I turned to grab my water bottle, a momentary glance away. When I turned back, the weight stack was fully engaged, the pin at 70 kilos, the handle still, as if untouched. My notepad showed 2 full sets of 12. But the machine, the weights, insisted I was just beginning my second. I shook my head, thinking I was overtired. But it happened again the following Friday, and then on Monday with the chest press. I'd finish a set, feel the effort, log it, and a moment later, the machine would seem reset, my muscles feeling oddly fresh, the memory of exertion fading too quickly. The gym, my place of concrete results, was becoming a place of unsettling ambiguity. My carefully constructed sense of control was dissolving. I started talking to myself, counting reps aloud, trying to anchor myself. The gym staff gave me odd looks. One evening, frustrated and disoriented after losing an entire set on the leg extension, I slammed the pin back in harder than usual. A small, water-damaged notebook, no bigger than my hand, slipped out from a narrow gap between the machine's housing and the floor padding. Its pages were stiff, the ink blurred in places. Most entries were faded workout logs, but one, dated over a decade ago in a spidery hand, read, "Lat pulled on 60 kg. Lost the second set again. It just vanishes. Am I going mad here? This place feels wrong." Beneath it, a final, shaky entry. "It takes them. It keeps taking the effort." I haven't touched that machine or any other since. The ticks on my notepad feel like a countdown to something I don't want to understand. Story 4. I've always had a sensitive nose. It's usually a curse, but at peak performance, it became something more sinister. The gym used to smell of clean sweat, citrus disinfectant, and the faint tang of rubber and iron, the scent of effort, of health. I cherished that, a reminder of what I was working towards after a period of ill health had stolen my vitality. But a new note had crept into the olfactory landscape, subtle at first, then insistent. It was localized to the far corner of the cardio section, near an older model treadmill that was rarely used. A cloying sweetness, like overripe fruit, mixed with a coppery, almost metallic tang and an underlying earthy dampness. I'd wrinkle my nose, assuming someone had spilled a protein shake and it had soured, or that the ancient plumbing was acting up. I even mentioned it to the staff, who shrugged, sprayed some air freshener, and forgot about it. But the smell persisted, grew richer, heavier. It began to permeate my workouts, a sickly counterpoint to the burn in my lungs. I started avoiding that corner, but curiosity and a deepening dread gnawed at me. The robust, clean feeling I once associated with the gym was being replaced by a quiet horror, a feeling of unseen decay. One quiet afternoon, armed with a wet wipe and a fabricated story about losing an earring, I knelt beside the old treadmill. The smell was strongest here, almost gagging. I ran my hand along the floor, under the edge of the machine's bulky base. My fingers brushed against something damp and slightly yielding on the concrete. I pulled back, looking at the wipe. It was stained a dark, reddish brown, not with dirt, but with something that looked slick, organic. And clinging to it, almost too small to see, was a tiny, pale filament, like a root tendril or a strand of fungal mycelium. I peered closer under the machine with my phone light. There, in the dimness, spreading from a crack in the foundation beneath the treadmill, was a patch of something dark and velvety, glistening faintly, and a single, fleshy, petal-like growth, the color of bruised plums, unfurling towards the stale air. The gym floor wasn't just dirty. It was host to something I couldn't name, something that was quietly, steadily blooming in the dark. Story 5. Canceling my membership at the Iron Den should have been simple. I was moving cities, a new job, a clean break. I'd signed up years ago, full of resolutions, and though my attendance had become sporadic, I'd always appreciated its no-nonsense, old-school atmosphere. The contract, I vaguely recalled, was for a year, then month to month. Standard stuff. That initial optimism, the feeling of taking control of my health, felt like a distant, naive memory. The problem started at the front desk. A new, unnervingly placid young man couldn't find my cancellation form. My emails went unanswered. Phone calls were met with endless hold music or promises of a callback that never materialized. Meanwhile, the monthly debits continued. I visited again, firmer this time. An older woman with eyes that seemed to have seen 1,000 fleeting fitness fads informed me my contract was ironclad perpetual. A charming turn of phrase, she'd said, for their most loyal members. There was no cancellation clause for perpetuals. I laughed, then argued, then despaired. This wasn't just bad customer service. It felt intentional, quietly malevolent. The gym, once a symbol of self-improvement, now felt like a creditor with unbreakable chains. My sense of agency, my simple right to end an agreement, was gone. Driven by a mix of fury and a growing unease, I started digging. Old local newspaper archives online. The Iron Den had been around for decades, founded by a man known for his eccentric views on lifelong commitment. Then I found it. A small, faded article from 20 years ago about a string of disappearances. 3 individuals, all lifetime members of the Iron Den, had vanished without a trace over several years. Police found no foul play, just people who had seemingly walked away from their lives. The article quoted the founder, "Our members find a true home here. They commit fully." The next time I was forced to go to the gym to try and argue my case yet again. They wouldn't discuss it over the phone. I saw the placid young man at the desk swiping a membership card to clock in for his shift. It wasn't a staff card. It was an old, laminated member card. The photo on it faded but clearly recognizable as one of the men from the newspaper article, a man who had disappeared 2 decades ago. Now apparently an employee with no memory of his past, perpetually serving the Iron Den. My payments continue, and I swear, the amount on my bank statement sometimes looks less like a fee and more like a tithe.